Really excited for my next guest on Talking Sense. The one and only Casey Foss, Chief Marketing Officer at West Monroe, is going to be joining me. And we are going to talk about market insights, account-based for professional services, and a whole lot more. Welcome to another episode of Talking Sense. I'm so excited to be here with Casey Foss, Chief Marketing Officer at West Monroe. But what we're going to find out in this episode is she's really a Chief Market Officer. Casey, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about West Monroe, because it's you guys have been on a tear. It's an awesome growth story.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know West Monroe, we're a business and technology consulting firm. We have deep technology at our core, but we apply that technology to real business challenges. And it's been the secret to our success, right? We've grown with a compounded annual growth rate of 25% year over year. And like all other businesses, we saw a little bit of a dip in that growth last year, but still grew and are consistently kind of up around 40% growth year over year this year. And that's driven by this nimble entrepreneurial spirit that cuts across the entire organization and on the belief that as we grow, we're able to provide growth opportunities for our people, which is really what it's all about.
So just to put into context, Casey, you mentioned growing at a compounding rate of around 25%. Compared to an industry of about 9%. So you guys really are beating the odds year after year after year. And one of the things I want to talk about is services and how do you differentiate services? They're people, right? So how do you say, well, my people are better than those people?
Yeah, so you're going to laugh because it is about the people, right? But it's more than just about the people. It's about the environment that you create for those people. And so we win and lose as a team. There is not separate profit sharing. We don't fight over origination credit, which for anybody in the professional services world, those are things that happen all the time, right? Mm-hmm. We've broken down the silos to foster this environment of collaboration. And what that leads to is really the best solution for our client. And so we focus on bringing these multidisciplinary teams together, which over time I've realized are really hard to replicate. So you have a nurse sitting side by side a data scientist, sitting side by side a change management expert, trying to figure out the patient experience for a provider and doing that collectively for the best outcome for that customer. And so I think that mix really helps bring the best of what people have to offer in an environment where it's celebrated to do so.
Now, as a CMO though, in a professional services environment, how do you build, like one of the things that I think you've done such a great job, and maybe you wouldn't admit, but I can, is a lot of the growth story is the brand that you've built, right? And of course, I know you haven't done it alone, but you've done a really nice job. So tell us a little bit about how you think about branding the firm.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you. But you hit it on the head. We are a people business, right? And so making sure that we build a brand that people see themselves in is key to success. And so I spend just as much time in our four walls becoming a champion for that brand and what it means and who we are, so that the 1,600 walking billboards that go out into the market sound the same. Because what's worse than having two partners sitting side by side at a client representing the firm differently, right? Mm-hmm. And so it really is about a partnership and bringing those people, that product, if you will, along on the journey of what makes us different, why we should celebrate that. And for us specifically, I hit on multidisciplinary teams, but what we really anchor on is applying technology to solve business issues and ultimately drive value for our buyers. And that is something that across West Monroe, the leaders believe is missing from the industry. We don't think enough consultants are talking about value creation for the work that they deliver. And so because we picked a topic that was near and dear to their hearts, they're able to bring that message to market and help build the brand. And the more we tell the story consistently, I mean, any marketer knows that the better the brand becomes, right?
Right. It is about, it's so funny because there's always a desire, oh, that's cool. We should go do that. And the way they're talking about it's real cool. and I really like orange. Let's add that to the palette.
Oh my God, you have no idea. And so I was sharing this with you earlier. I feel like I walk around like a no bobblehead. Like, no, you can't do that. No, that's probably not a good idea. No, the market doesn't care about that. No, they don't care what practice you sit in, right? Like it's a lot about focus is, in my opinion, especially in a firm of our size, the most important thing. And industry segmentation is arguably the thing that is our key focus. And you know this in working with me. Our total addressable market is defined and locked in. Now it's going to change and we're going to iterate on it, but that's because the more focused we can be, the more we can help clients at the end of the day. And we're focused on specific industries versus chasing everything that comes our way and constantly being reactive.
Yeah, I wrote a blog a while ago saying no to say yes. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes it feels good to say yes, but you forget that when you're saying yes to something, you're saying no to something else. It's like an opportunity you can't capitalize on. And the shift to industries is hard. It's hard, but it does create more value for clients because you understand more intimately their challenges.
Right, and I think for us, we take an issues-based consulting approach to how we help clients. And what that means is we have to understand the industries. We have to know the trends as well as they do, so that when we show up, we can help them overcome those. And the way we help them overcome them is really twofold. It's with repeatable offerings, not to say we show up and every client gets the same thing, but they get kind of the concept and what's worked and understanding the issue from multiple lenses, and then the expected value if they address that issue, right? Because that's what comes from repetition.
Is that you know the value,
Yeah.
You know the drivers behind it. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute because I know you're friends with our CFO and you put him to the paces, so we'll have to let's hold that point. Before we go there, I do want to talk about, when we got to know one another, you've attended our Empowered series and Empowered CMO. And one of the things we talk a lot about at Empowered CMO is the difference between a chief marketing officer and all the ings, which sometimes are all the yeses, unfortunately, and a chief market officer. And I truly believe you are living the chief market officer. So maybe talk about how some of the things that you do to gather market insights and really bring that lens to West Monroe.
Well, so first I have to say thank you, because hearing the term Chief Market Officer was the most liberating thing that has happened to me in years, right? Because it put a name to the parts of my job that drove me nuts, right? Not that they're required, they're necessary, and they're very valuable to the organization, but you can spin out if that's all you focus on.
Yeah.
And so it was, I remember the first time I went to an event where we talked about it, and I came home and I was like, I've met my people. They get it. So thank you. But I think that, to me, I view my role as holding up a mirror to the organization and showing them how the market perceives them at a macro level, right? Our leaders and our partners' job is to understand intimately how our clients view us at a very micro, individual client level. And how you bring those two things together is really where the magic happens, if you will. And so for me, I have done things like set up a Voice of the Customer program, where we survey, not only do we survey after engagements through our client success team, but now we survey on the relationship as a whole. And we do that 2 or 3 times a year. And we ask the pointed questions, right? Are we delivering value? What matters most to you when you buy? What are the differentiators that we bring to bear? Questions that, quite frankly, some consulting firms are scared to ask,
right.
or don't ask, or don't take the time to ask. But I think the best thing is we take that data, and it's not lip service, right? Like we then review the data as an executive team, and we don't use it to necessarily sell the client the next project. We use it to inform our strategy and the direction of the firm.
It's amazing to me how many companies are somewhat a victim of their own success, right? And so they don't have a strategy and they don't have market insights. You joke about being a data nerd, but a lot of marketing is being a data nerd. And so maybe talk about that, like the kinds of data that you love, how you think about data, how you challenge your team.
Well, it's funny because I didn't realize how unique that was. I had an epiphany actually through last year and through 2020 when I was pushing my team, and data was really the only thing that gave us insight at that point, right? We weren't sitting side by side with our clients. And it really started to come to light that not everybody markets this way or thinks this way. And I think part of it is I grew up in the CRM world, in customer relationship management systems at credit card companies.
Tons of data.
Right. And so I've always started there, right? Listen to the customer, make decisions based on what they need, and sell them what will provide them the most value. It seems pretty simple, right? I think the data that we really use ranges from quantitative to qualitative. So I talked about the Voice of the Customer survey. We also do in-depth executive interviews with our clients. And that took a little bit to get our leaders comfortable, right? They're like, well, I know my client. Why do I need you to go there? And I'm like, well, they're going to share things with me that are very different than what they'll share with you. And I can ask questions that you won't ask. And so there's the qualitative component, but then there's also, we now live in a data-rich digital world, right? And so I know before a buyer raises their hand, what they're looking at, what they're searching for on my site, on other sites. And what we've started to do is package that holistically with everything else, right? So one of the things that would never work here is I've got this third-party data set, listen to this. But when we pull it into, this is what they're saying as part of the relationship. I've spoken to them on the phone. And oh, by the way, they're also surging on these topics, or they're thinking about these issues. Let's reach out to them, or let's nurture them before we even approach the line or the business developers and bring them along on a journey and then elevate them. So I really try and look at the whole picture inside our four walls and outside of them, to really understand where our opportunities lie.
I think that's been such an amazing approach, seeing you. I mean, it's been, I guess, how long have you been using our data? A year?
Yeah, I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary.
Happy anniversary! Great, even more reason to celebrate. But you have to know your environment, right? And I think professional services, when you have people that are day in and day out, shoulder to shoulder at an account with a client, you rock in with your data on what they're researching, and it might feel like, how do you know my client better than me, right? And so I think that, like, maybe explain how you've organized and coached your team to bring the data, not just 6 Sense data, but all the data that you've talked about, in a collaborative fashion that doesn't feel, like you're kind of encroaching on my account or my space.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, and it's really twofold, right? Like I'm serving up data on our key accounts, and the way that we've done that specifically is we have organized into marketing pods. So in the spirit of being more agile and team-oriented, we've rallied around these industries, and we have a pod per industry. And the pod is split up between top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom funnel. And my mid funnel and my bottom funnel marketers use the tool very differently, but they both are in it.
That's true, yeah.
And so when you think about the bottom funnel marketers, these are marketers who go toe to toe with the account directors of our most important accounts, right? That's really where the one-to-one traditional ABM model comes into play. What is the content we should serve up based on what they're in? And that's a collaboration. We meet with those account teams on a monthly basis, and we go over what we're seeing, what they're seeing, and how we should elevate that in the market for that buyer specifically. Funny enough, that's actually worked easier because it's felt like a partnership from day one. The middle funnel and talking to prospects, which I would have thought would have been significantly easier, right? Nobody knows these clients, like
Right.
they're fair game.
Yeah.
Was harder. And it was harder because, and you and I have talked a little bit about this, getting our business developers and our line resources to think about prospecting versus lead management, right? And so we've got these marketing qualified leads. We know what they're interested in. Arguably, we hadn't nurtured them enough yet. The business developers weren't comfortable yet reaching out to them. So we've worked a lot over the past few months in fixing that process. And it's paying dividends already. I think people hear me talk a lot about bringing people on a journey or getting them in a boat. West Monroe is a very collaborative environment. And a lot of the times, more often than not, if you haven't done that, that's where programs fall apart. And I think that was our miss, was we thought that we knew the data was excellent, it would change the way we marketed, it was time to start using it, but we hadn't necessarily made everybody else part of that journey. And so there was a little resistance. I think we're making our way through, but there was definitely a little resistance, more so to that mid-funnel work.
Interesting. And then what are you doing top of the funnel?
So the top of the funnel is really, so I also, in addition to the marketing function at West Monroe, I oversee a team of resources that focus on issue and offering acceleration. And they're really based in market research. What are the issues that matter to the clients and the industries we serve? And what are the repeatable offerings we can and should build? And then ultimately that flows into how you drive value. And I would say that team, coupled with the top of funnel marketers, are responsible for capitalizing on the issues. And that's what you really build that top of funnel brand around.
Right. It's the thought leadership you create and why you create it and making sure it connects to the customers.
And I think a lot of the data in that group tends to be, there's leading indicators, right, on what the issues are and what we hear people talking about. But I think a lot of the data we use in that group is actually lagging data that influences the rest of the funnel.
Like from your interviews and those type of things. Mm-hmm. Perfect. So you did, we're going to go off-road because we mentioned data and value, and you did put our CFO through quite a process.
Everybody doesn't do that? My very own financial model?
Yeah, tell us about that. The Casey model is now available to all of our prospects.
So I really focus on the metrics that matter to our C-suite, right? I don't have, and I've talked a lot about this, I don't have a separate marketing dashboard that I make my CEO scroll through because he doesn't care.
Yeah.
What he cares about is how are we delivering on the client goals for the firm, right? So are we driving up median client revenue? Are we selling more repeatable offerings to our clients? Are we growing lifetime revenue for our clients? Those are the things that the executive leadership team cares about. And so in turn, those are the things that I care about. And so when I was choosing Sixth Sense or other ABM partners, and I've been pretty open about this with everybody who went through our process, I felt like Sixth Sense got the fact that I wanted a tool that would make the firm better versus a tool that would make the marketing function better. But when it came to telling that story, we reverted back to the metrics, right? These are the marketing metrics. We're going to get you this many leads, or this is how it's going to look in CRM. And I remember talking to Rob and saying, I got to show revenue. Tell me the bottom line dollar that we're going to drive. And the feedback was, we can't sign up for that. And I was like, I just need a story. Help me tell the story. Because ultimately, the tool could be great and the insights could be outstanding. But if we're not able to drive revenue from it, is it the
Who
right
cares?
Well, and is it the right tool for our business, right? That was something you and I went back and forth on. For a product company with a sales team, tools like this are easy. When you have to rely on hundreds of people who are serving clients, this becomes an and. And if it doesn't help them achieve their revenue targets, it becomes an and that's at the way bottom of their list.
So a year later, do you think we're an and?
I think we're getting there. I think I tend to, I move fast. I hear an idea, I like an idea, we try an idea, we move on. And I think I think we're getting there. I think we've cracked the code on how I think it's talked about in high regard and how it helps our most loyal, advocate-oriented accounts, right? Those that have been with us for a while, and how we can continue to serve them better, especially in a world, right, where we weren't sitting side by side with them every day.
Right.
As I mentioned earlier, I think we're still on the journey for that prospecting aspect of it. However, I will say we're starting to get at bats that we wouldn't have gotten had we not been using the tool. We have found a way to uncover kind of the nuggets that matter most. We've narrowed the leads that we serve up to the business developers so they take them more seriously, right? When you show them 100 leads and they're like, well, these 50 don't make sense, then they stop listening, right? And so it was kind of also educating our own team on that process.
On just like focusing it down.
Yes, focus. It's like a broken record.
When we met, we were both guest instructing at Northwestern, which was very fun. And you were just starting to think about account-based and account-based technology. And, do you think the pandemic accelerated that? Was neutral? How important was this given pandemic?
Yeah, so it for sure accelerated it for a few reasons. The first is we couldn't be in the market for the first time ever. We couldn't be at events. We couldn't be working with our clients and collaborating in person or having dinners or going to golf outings. It's like, cliche as that sounds, that's when you really hear the stuff that keeps people up at night. Like, I can't, how many dinners have we had where I'm like, this is the real problem. This is what I'm really struggling with, right? And so I think that you pull that out and you need data to get those insights. And so I think people were more open to new ideas because they needed intel. But I think the other thing that happened in the pandemic, and I don't know that we've talked about this, we were about to launch a brand on April 1st of 2020. And all of our messaging in the market was around growth and how you're going to get there faster. And,
God.
And I had to call my CEO and say, so we're not going to launch the brand
that we've been working on for a year.
New plan. We're also going to rip out all of the existing messaging in the market. So all 150 things that we have going on, events, ads, content is all coming out, and it's all going to be, and we launched between the issue and offering acceleration team and the marketing team and our strategy team, 30 plus new offerings that were pandemic appropriate and pandemic ready. And to me, what that process brought to life was truly account-based marketing, right? We knew the shift, our clients were shifting their focus and their needs. We knew we needed to get them new things that were relevant to them, and we needed to get them to them in a way that made sense for them. And so what it did was it proved the need for account-based marketing, it proved the process was there, and it brought our leaders along. So then the technology was kind of
part of the strategy.
The missing piece, right? That you add to that mix to make it easier, right? We could keep doing it this way, but it's going to be harder, it's going to cost more money, it's going to take more time, or we could use technology to make it easier. And when I was choosing technologies, I was more focused on the partner on the other side of the technology than I was the technology. I think the account-based marketing tech platform, there's pros and cons to many. I think when we wound up on 6 Sense, one of the things was you could change intent data in a day and not a week, and you could change your list and you could focus on the right client at the right time. But a lot of the technologies have overlapping capabilities.
Totally.
I wanted a partner that was going to be on the other side of the tech that understood what I wanted and needed and was as invested in getting us there, right? That's really what we fell down on.
And, I think you guys have been very successful. Like, I've seen the brand launch because I was stalking your ads. I always love to look at people's ads. I'm like, oh, that's really pretty. And I mean, it seems like you've really been able to get in front of that target audience that you wanted to get in front of.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So from April 1st to June 1st, we focused on launching all the new offerings, and then like I had amnesia, I went back to my CEO and I said, okay, so the new brand is actually perfect for right now, right? People have a finite amount of money they need to spend. We are living in an entirely digital world, and not one of our clients knows how to be digital, and we can help wherever they are on their journey to become digital.
We got them.
Our multidisciplinary teams, in my opinion, are among the best to get them there and focus on the value. So it's time. And I was like, I'm not going to do a big unveiling. It's not going to be about us. So talk about the most muted brand launch of all time. But we started one by one, just turning on the channels, turning on the ads, flipping the website, and ingraining kind of what we do. And my favorite part of the brand is it brought a lot of the swagger that you hear and see when you interact with us, but that you hadn't seen necessarily in the old brand. And the tone of voice really matched who our people are and how they show up. But it's interesting. It's a fine balance, right? We talked a little bit about it. I got 1,600 people who've got to see the brand and be like, oh, no, that's me. I'm delivering value, or I'm part of a multidisciplinary team, or I'm helping clients be digital.
So how do you do that?
That's a good question. So I think we accentuate what matters to buyers. I'll go back to that, right? We really listen to what our buyers care about, and that's what we over-index on. And we do it in a way that is where we're going, right? Is everybody doing everything the way that the brand talks about it or represents it? Probably not. Are we a large percentage of the way there? Yes. And by the time we get all the way there, the brand will be something else.
Yeah, I know.
But
it's good job security.
But I've been at West Monroe 13 years, and I've been through 3 rebrands because of how quickly we're growing and how much our story and the value we bring clients changes because of that. But that's what keeps it interesting.
No, totally. It's funny, we're about to go through it again, and the first 2, I felt I still had some objectivity, but this time I'm bringing in someone else to help, because sometimes you're so close to it yourself. So it should be interesting. Another adventure.
So this brand work we did, and I mentioned this with the ads, but it's really everything, was the first time I heard our executives. Like, there's sentences in things that we say or messages that we deliver that I'm like, well, that sounds like me, or that sounds like Kevin. And there's parts of all of us, I think, in the brand, which really helps make it and keep it authentic, which I think is the part of it being closer to where we are today, right? People hear the words that sound like they're leaders,
and it feels familiar.
And they're bought in.
Yeah, and they can get behind it. Let's talk about you.
Okay.
How about you? I always am curious about the job people loved. Not today, of course you love your job today. But, was there a job growing up, or what was your favorite job?
So I think the job that I learned the most about myself was my first job post-college, which was at a public relations agency. And I say that because of a few reasons. First, I think it was the entire purpose of the job was communicating with executives and being an effective storyteller, which in my opinion are the 2 most important things in a professional's career. The data piece helps, right? To do those 2 things well, I need data for me personally. But in general, I think that those are the 2 most important things. And I came out of college, like any kid that comes out of college, super big ego. I knew it all. I was a communicator. I had a degree in PR. And I remember the first article I wrote and I submitted it to my boss at the time, but who was a former editor of a newspaper, and it came back just beaten up. Just, I don't think that there was more red ink than there was black ink, like the very cliche story that happens. But from that, it was an awakening for me. I checked my ego at the door, but it really changed how I look at mentors and leaders in my life. And anybody who works with me has heard this from me, but I'm of the mind that you handpick. West Monroe has a term called career board of directors. And I handpicked mine to be people with very specific things that I was going to learn from them. This person is a great speaker. He's going to mentor me on that. This person is great at using data to tell a story. I'm going to bounce ideas off of him, right? Like, and you take the best of those people around you. And that's really, I was an account coordinator. I was serving, I think, 7 account directors. They were all wildly different. And it was an opportunity to kind of just sponge all of that off of them, right? And learn. And then, of course, a year into that job, I decided there wasn't enough data, and I went back to school to focus only on data. But it's, and then West Monroe kind of brings all of that together.
So another question that you can't get off the show without answering.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Because I think that you learn more from your mistakes than your success. So I always like to ask people, like, colossal F up, just the biggest.
Yeah, okay. So I'll do one that's more recent. There's many to choose from.
For most of us there are. There's a long back file.
Right. Most of them are very deep, but this is more recent. In consulting, one of the big things that you do is you bring clients together, right? You even do this with your event. And a few years ago, we had said we're gonna host our first ever big cross-industry client summit. Now, we have client advisory boards. We do a ton of client polling and data reports. But this was going to be like the client summit to kick off client summits every year. And we had started to line up keynote speakers. We had looked into a hotel. And as we started to try and get attendees, we couldn't get people to register. And
that's the worst.
It was like and it wasn't only like a dagger to my heart. It was, you watch the team, right, just totally deflate, because it's not, they can't drive the attendance. They can produce the best event in the world, but without our partners, they couldn't do it, right? And so I've talked a lot about bringing people on a journey, right? And it was a time where I came in with the mindset of, this is going to be awesome. They're going to be on board. I don't have to ask anybody, like, we're going to go. And because the line leaders that we needed weren't in the boat, weren't brought along, it just couldn't get off the ground. And I think the thing that hit me the hardest was then looking and turning to the team and saying, you got to pull the plug. And it was the first time, I've had, like I said, many mess ups in my career, but it was the first time in my career that like brute force and determination couldn't fix it. And so it was all around, I think, devastating to watch the team go through it, annoying for me and frustrating. And then the best part is you go to a meeting a few weeks later and somebody's like, you know what would have been great is if we could have gotten people to go to that event. And I was like, oh, you think? I was like, do you want to watch me go crazy? They're like, I mean, I know you feel that way too. And I was like, mm-hmm. So it's just, but that's probably the most recent kind of, and most public, right? Because the whole firm knows about that.
I know, yeah, and there's sunk cost and there's time. And I mean, I think some of the worst nightmares I have are great events, great speakers, great venues, 20 people.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh God, this is embarrassing.
Right.
When are they going to come?
Right. It's like when you host a party.
Yeah.
When's the first guest going to get here?
You can just get here. It would ease my nerves.
Right.
Oh man, you got to focus on the recruitment strategy, right? Oh, but I do think though, I will say, in my experience, professional service events are actually harder to drive attendance to.
Oh, well, and it's because, and it goes back to that dichotomy of who owns the relationship, right? I can't reach out to the CFO of our client that somebody's sitting side by side with that day and say, hey, do you want to come to my event? They're going to be like, what is this? Like, it doesn't make sense. So you do need that partnership.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for pushing 6 cents. We love it.
I won't stop.
I know you won't stop. That's what we love about working with you. Appreciate you being in Coffee Talk too, and just being an awesome mentor and friend, and would you call it a career panel?
Career board,
Career board. You're on my career board.
Well, you're on mine. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. It's always a pleasure to talk to you about all things marketing nonsense.
All things marketing, talking sense and talking nonsense.